Whether you're fasting, carb cycling, following a ketogenic diet, or you're just cutting calories, there's one common condition that you definitely need to be concerned about: muscle loss. I've gone through so many cuts over the years, and through trial and error, I've learned what works best to prevent muscle loss. And the truth is that no matter what you do, if you're trying to burn fat by cutting calories, while you're in that caloric deficit, you will experience at least some form of muscle loss, even if you do everything perfectly. So rather than pretending that there's some secret method that will completely stop muscle loss during a cut, the purpose of this video is to teach you the best strategies and the best methods to prevent as much muscle loss as possible while cutting body fat. And you're going to want to follow these step-by-step tips because not only will preventing muscle loss make you look better and more aesthetic at the end of your cut, but it'll also make keeping the fat off much easier when you're actually done. The first thing you'll want to do is maintain as much strength as possible during your cut. This is the single most important step you could take with your workouts to encourage your body to maintain as much muscle as possible. When you cut calories, it's no secret that you're going to be feeling a lot more tired and low in energy. You feel tired because your glycogen stores will be running low, and that's actually the only reason why your body instead switches over to using stored energy from your fat cells to begin with. Due to the fact that most people feel tired, most will respond by thinking that they can just take it a little easier during their workouts. However, even though you're tired, the very last thing you want to do is decrease the intensity of your workouts. As a natural lifter, your strength is closely tied to the amount of muscle mass you preserve during a cut. This is because unlike steroid users, you don't have the benefit of an increased rate of protein synthesis 24/7. You have to create that by lifting heavy weights even when you have low energy levels from being on a diet. The number one training method to build more muscle as a natural lifter is progressive overload, in which you progressively lift heavier and heavier weights, increasing your strength, which ultimately leads you to more protein synthesis and more muscle mass. So, if you're trying to maintain as much muscle mass as possible, your goal needs to be to maintain as much strength as possible during your cut. Unfortunately, there's still this myth that when you cut, you should go light, as opposed to when you try to build muscle, that's when you should go heavy. However, when you cut, since you're taking in less calories than you need for maintenance, your body is trying to conserve energy in every way it can for survival reasons. If you don't stimulate your muscles that you're already built up by still engaging in high intensity workouts with heavy weights, if you no longer have that stimulus and you're now using lighter weights, getting rid of that now useless muscle is an easy call for your body to make from an energy conservation standpoint. So you will want to do what it takes to maintain strength when you cut. Now, this is no easy task when you're low on energy, and for every week that you cut, it actually gets a little more difficult to maintain the same strength levels you had before starting that cut. So what I always say is that the goal has to be to fight for every last inch. What this means is that you might have been doing, let's say, 225 for 10 reps on the bench press, for example. Then you start cutting, and your first day of cutting, you can only do 9 reps. A week later, you're down to 8 reps, and then the following week, you're down to 7 reps. Most people would simply drop the weight to something lighter that they could do more reps with less of a struggle, since they're in this low energy state. However, if you do this, it'll only accelerate the rate at which you lose strength and muscle mass. So when I say fight for every last inch, I mean stick to that same weight until your rep range drops way too low, which is anything around 3 or 4 reps. Until that moment, you have to stick it out with that same weight and push yourself to try to hit as many reps as possible, regardless of how tired or weak you feel. I personally experienced the best results when sticking within a rep range of about 5 to 8 reps with the heaviest weight load possible for that rep range while cutting. But when you do finally have to drop the weight, make sure you're dropping it to a weight load that's still very intense for you. You should not feel totally comfortable with the weight you're lifting just because you have no energy from being in a caloric deficit. By forcing yourself to fight for every last inch of strength, you'll be doing the most crucial thing in regard to your training to prevent muscle loss. Now let's talk about the second tip, which is actually the most important step you could take to prevent muscle loss in regard to your diet, and that's eating enough protein. Studies show that when you cut, you want to increase protein intake to decrease muscle loss. And when you do more aggressive of a reduction in your calories, you want to increase protein even more. So to give you some concrete numbers, according to the research, you want to get anywhere from 0.8 to 1.3 grams of protein per pound of body weight. When you're trying to maintain your weight, you don't need such a high protein intake. However, when cutting, the best way to avoid muscle loss is by increasing protein as you increase your caloric deficit. So if you're cutting at a moderate pace, like 20 to 25% of a reduction from your maintenance calories, then you can go with a 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. But if you're trying to cut fat faster and you have, let's say, a 40 to a 45% reduction in calories from maintenance, you're gonna definitely wanna go with the higher end of that range, so 1.3 grams of protein per pound of body weight in that situation. Now this actually brings me right to my next tip, which is to keep calories and carbohydrates as high as possible while cutting. Studies show that you'll typically lose less muscle mass when you're maintaining a moderate deficit like a 20 to 25% reduction rather than a more aggressive deficit like a 40 to 45% reduction. A moderate deficit is the best place to start when cutting because there's a process known as adaptive thermogenesis, which will happen as you cut more and more. Adaptive thermogenesis is essentially your body slowing down its metabolism and the amount of calories that you output to save energy. So now as your body starts to plateau, you can increase your deficit to 30%, then 35, then 40. And keep in mind, you're increasing your deficit slowly, like every 2 to 4 weeks minimum. As long as you continue losing body fat, you should not be increasing your deficit. There's no point. And as you do increase your deficit, if you have to, remember you want to also be increasing your protein intake to preserve muscle mass. Now the reason why you want to also try to keep carbs as high as possible during your cut to preserve muscle mass is because carbs are the ideal fuel source for higher intensity workouts. You'll do a lot better with heavy weights if you're able to incorporate more low glycemic carbohydrates into your diet. Of course, you'll almost always have to cut a lot of carbs when cutting. However, the goal is to keep as many as you can in your diet to help you lift at a higher intensity. Carb cycling can help a lot with this. Even if you're on a keto diet, consider incorporating an occasional refeed day where you allow yourself to refill depleted glycogen stores. Let's move on to the fourth major way to prevent muscle loss, and that's by decreasing training frequency. So yes, you do want to push yourself harder during your workouts and fight for every last inch. However, you want to take more days off and work out less frequently during the week. Now there's a reason for this. Since you're taking in less calories, your body will have a tougher time recovering and repairing broken down muscle tissue. Not only that, but your central nervous system will also take longer to recover, and your central nervous system, or your CNS, is a huge part of what gives you the strength to lift heavy weights to begin with. By allowing your body more time to recover, not only will you prevent yourself from accidentally creating too great of a deficit, but you'll also give your body a chance to fully prepare for the next intense training session without overtraining. If you eat enough calories based on your activity level, it's really hard to overtrain. But when you're on a caloric deficit, it's a lot easier to overtrain. So if you were normally exercising 6 days a week, try cutting it down to a training frequency of 4 times a week. And I should briefly talk about cardio. You want to treat adding more cardio the same way you treat decreasing calories, meaning you want to start with as little cardio as possible and only add cardio 1 session at a time if you absolutely have to as you plateau. If, for example, you plateaued and you really don't want to eat even less than you're currently eating, you can add on a cardio session instead of cutting calories further to assist in losing more body fat. And the cardio you want to be doing to preserve muscle mass is once again high intensity interval training, like intervals of sprints, for example, instead of low intensity steady state cardio like long duration jogging. Finally, the last step you can take to prevent muscle loss is to stick primarily to major compound lifts. Like I've been saying the whole time, you're going to have a very limited amount of energy. You're going to want to use all that energy on the exercises that are going to help you maintain the most strength and muscle mass. Exercises like bicep curls, skull crushers, and lateral raises are far less important than exercises like barbell squats, bench presses, military presses, rows, pull-ups, and other staple compound exercises. You want to stick primarily to compound exercises because there's going to be more joints and more muscles involved in the movement, requiring you to generate more strength and power for these exercises. And I don't think I have to go into any further detail on how important strength is for naturals to maintain muscle while cutting. make sure you use all your energy lifting heavy weights for your compound lifts before moving on to isolation work while cutting. That's it guys, I really hope this video has helped you out. If you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can be notified whenever I release new tips and tricks just like these. And if you're looking to take the next step and you want a done-for-you approach for fat loss that'll show you exactly how to lose body fat fast without losing muscle mass in the process, check out my 6-week challenge, where on average my clients are losing 20 pounds or 5% of their body fat in only 6 short weeks. You get a customized diet plan, a 42-day workout plan, a recipe book, a grocery list, an accountability coach that's going to check in with you every week to help guide you through the entire process, as well as much, much more. With the 6-week challenge, we give you the opportunity to get the whole program for free just by committing to following it without cheating and without quitting for all 6 weeks. By putting some skin in the game, you actually stay committed for all 42 days, even when the going gets rough. To find out more, you can click the link in the description, or you could visit the website directly at gravitytransformation.com. On the website, you'll find the 6-week fat loss challenge, as well as other programs designed to help you build muscle in the most efficient way possible. Again, the website is gravitytransformation.com. I'll see you guys soon.